Hi, Christy.
Hello, Evelyn. How are you?
I'm so excited, really. Like, it's been such a long time since we had our last conversation, and I know that we've been anticipating the start of our second season, and it's a topic that's just all around. I mean, we want to start or put this whole season under the wings of love, under the name of love. And I know that you're really passionate about exploring love in its different layers. And so, yeah, what would you like to start us with?
Hmm. I mean, there's really nothing worth talking about other than love, really. I mean, it's all kind of everything that is comes from there, goes from there. It's who we are, it's a state of being. Um, And there's so much to be said. I know we've been given strict orders not to talk about my memoir that I'm writing, but sorry, everyone. I've just been writing my memoir nonstop for the last 35 days, and it's really on my heart. And I think it's going to have the word love in the title. And so it really, one of the things talking about love, it's almost easier to talk about what it's not or when it's missing, because there's something about when we get caught in this idea that love is a thing, or love is separate from us, or love is something that you can give and receive, or that you can create it or destroy it. That at least from my experience, I've made a big mess of things with that way of thinking about it. And it's not until we sink into being, any of us, any of our anxious parts, any of our fearful parts, anything that feels like it's not love, and we really find out what it wants at the deepest level. Every part of us wants love, and we spend so much of our energy and time living life backwards trying to get love, and it's already there. It's what is, and is who we are. And so any trying to get it or trying to give it ends up just being painful.
I think it's also really interesting because it's like a human, it's in our human nature that we can only perceive what is there by having a lack of it or by like being separated from it, and then having the experience of finding our way back so that we can really fully appreciate what we have. At least that's how I experience it. What was
Yeah.
your way back to love, or how did you find this place that you're just describing of like being in this place of love?
Hmm. It's, I think it happens in the tiniest little glimpses. Like when you first encounter love, it happens in such a brief moment. And then it's like, wait, did that really happen or not? But it's like even one moment in the presence of love, you're never going to forget it. And so even 10 years later, there's still a like, wait, that was real. That was maybe the only thing that was real. And then you get another little glimpse of it and another little glimpse. And then over time, you start recognizing, like, wait a second, it's there all the time. It's just that I keep forgetting it. But once you know that it's there, you can just keep coming back to it. Um, and I think we talked in Spain. I remember we had lunch together during an Awaken Coach Institute training that you and I were co-facilitating. And I forget how the topic came up, but there was a time I was 28 years old, I think, and I had had a miscarriage, and I had gone into a really deep depression and was didn't see the point of living. And I think a lot of it was hormonal and lots of other things going on. But there was a time that I was awake in the middle of the night, and I was crying again, and it had been going on for weeks. It had gotten to a really, really dark place. And my husband kind of slid off the bed onto the floor next to me, and he said, "Who's God to you?" And I was like, what a ridiculous question. This is like, if somebody's crying, like, why are you asking them about their theology? Like, what is going on here? But I kind of sat up and I was like, well, I got this image of this river. And I said, I think God is the river of life. It's like it was so palpable to me, this image that just came rushing to my mind. And I could see it. It was a really deep, strong, broad, like very abundant. There was so much water, endless amounts of water in this river. I said, I think God is like the river of life. Um, and so he was kind of confused. He's like, well, why, if there's this infinite source of life, what happens when you drink? And I was like, oh, that never crossed my mind. I always thought that whoever God was kind of a judgy. I call that version Judgy McJudge face now as a joke. Um, like that's sort of a judgy white dude who is really mostly interested in punishing people for their sexual sins or otherwise, um, and I knew that God hadn't chosen me. Like God had chosen everybody else, but not me. And so I wasn't allowed to drink. But then I was like, I wonder if I can. And all of a sudden in my imagination, I just started running down to that river. And then I got kind of scared right before I got to the banks. And I was like, am I going to be struck dead if I do this? But then I heard a voice just saying, of course I chose you. Of course you can drink as much as you want. And I just lay down on my stomach and just started scooping up as much water as I wanted to. And I just knew that I could always go back and have as much as I wanted. And it just felt like joy to swallow it, and to know that, oh, it's inside of me now. Like it's in the river, but it's in me. Um, and that deep feeling of connection with nature and with the creativity and with everything that is. Um, and that's just what's stayed with me ever since. And of course, with lots of forgetting, and then that sort of saying it's the imagination doesn't do it justice because it's more real than anything. But over time, it gets to be more and more real in real life, if we want to call it that. And so to me, God and love and infinity and abundance and water, and joy and being are all the same thing. There's nothing, it doesn't matter what word you use for it. It's more about being it.
The quality that lives underneath the word, right? Yeah, it's also like it sounds like this experience for you has been like quite a pivotal moment in your exploration or in your relationship with love. And I would love to understand more like how does this shift, how did it support you in having a different relationship with like the challenges? Like, for example, you mentioned your miscarriage, or maybe there were like other challenges along your way. How were you able to relate differently with this new understanding or this different connection to love?
Hmm. I wish I could say it was immediate. It was more like it was more like a brief glimpse, and then there were other brief glimpses that happened later over time. But it was enough. It was almost like one of those near death experiences, where somebody's like, they saw the white light at the end of the tunnel, they saw how beautiful it was, and then they wanted to live, fully, ever after. And it just felt like, um, how would I say it? It felt like more real than sort of the fake way of living that people were having. And so I think what it did is it shifted my, like, 180 degrees, my way of doing things. And I don't think I could have said this at the time, but later when I did coach training, it started making more sense, that I learned that most of us are living life backwards because we think we need to do something to be safe, and then we need to do more to belong. And I think I spent lots and lots of my early times, probably most of us who ever went through middle school and high school and whatever, trying to fit in, trying to be like everybody else, trying not to, be ostracized or humiliated or whatever, and just wanting to be part of things. Um, and so there's this wanting safety, wanting belonging. And then we think, okay, now that I belong enough, maybe I can be successful, uh, whatever it is, have a career. Once I'm successful, then I can be fulfilled, like whatever this job that I have, or having kids, or whatever it is that feels successful, that's going to bring me some fulfillment. And once I'm fulfilled, then I can be happy. And if I can just be happy, then I'm going to get to peace or love or joy or whatever it is, that core state. And so we just keep working, working, working to buy the next thing, or get the house, or get the partner, or get the kids, or whatever it is, thinking that that's going to be fulfilling and happy. And I think it was in that moment where it's like, you can drink as much as you want right now. And so then it's like, once you start with love as your source of everything and who you are, and that it's in you, it's out there, there's not really a separation. It's almost a feeling of the body being fluid, and just very connected. All of a sudden, all those other things are just a free gift. They're a natural byproduct. Happiness and fulfillment and success and belonging and safety. You don't have to do anything for them. You could be lounging around on your couch, reading a book, or sitting at the beach, or doing nothing, and you could still have all of those good gifts just because you're alive. There's no prerequisites, there's no graduation. It just is.
And you mentioned also that there were like multiple moments that made it easier for you to reconnect to this knowing of love. What would you say were like what do these moments have in common? Like, when did they show up?
Hmm.
What do they have in common?
They happened almost systematically every 10 years. it was almost like I just got this out of the blue kind of reboost. Um, so the next time something like that happened, I was 38. So it was 10 years later. So the 28, I was still living in Washington, D.C., and very, very much on my career path and climbing the corporate ladder and interested in getting promotions and getting paid more. And, women in their careers was a passion of mine, and equal paychecks and all that kind of thing, which is still very important. They're absolutely great. Love it. It just doesn't have to be as hard as we make it sometimes. And so then when I was 38, I was living in Kenya. And I would say maybe what they have in common is that the dark times preceding them got bad enough that something had to shift. And so I had gone through kind of a identity crisis, I would say, where I had gone from being a six-figure corporate person who wore heels and makeup and went to an office and had a title and a nice apartment in Paris and all that kind of stuff, to being a fat mom with no job and zero salary and just no sort of identity markers that anyone who would need to be impressed would see. Um, and I had worked on this project for a while, and this white American older dude, who shall remain nameless, canceled the project I was working on, which is, whatever. I was leading a team of volunteers. There were about 20 students. We were all working on this magazine project, and he wasn't even part of the communications department or anything, but he thought that being a Bible scholar made him know how I should be running the communications department at this university where I was volunteering. And so he canceled my project. And then when I kind of explained some things to him about the budget and whatever, he said to me, "Your job is to shut up and do what you're told." And so that's not a pleasant thing for somebody to say, but I was so, so angry. And I didn't sleep for 3 days. And I was just very, very upset about it. And the fact that I was that upset about somebody telling me to shut up and do what you're told, and that they didn't see that I had been a senior executive in communications, and that now that I'm just a mom, in quotes, that he can tell me whatever he wants to say. It really shook me up. Like, why do I care so much that I would go 3 nights without sleep and just be so intensely angry about this? And nothing against anger. I think anger is a beautiful part of love. But I also like sleeping. And so I had gone off on this, silent retreat at a Jesuit retreat center. And I was just lying in the grass. And I think it was maybe day 4 or 5 of the retreat. And so it was complete silence. I hadn't talked to anybody except for this one nun for a half an hour every morning. And my little monkey brain had stopped talking so much by day 5. I was just lying in the grass, doing nothing. And all of a sudden I saw right next to my eyes this little weed flower. And it was just, half the size of my fingernail or something. It was a tiny little weed. But I picked it and started looking at it really, really closely. And I'm like, this thing is gorgeous. it's really almost identical to an orchid. It's beautiful. And there was a little ant crawling on it. And I was like, oh man, if I were that ant, this would be like a mansion of glory here with, all this decoration. There's these little speckles on the petals, and there's these, majestic stamens and pistils coming out of the center of the flower. And I was like, why does this thing even exist? It's so tiny, but it's so beautiful. And it's like, that is the ant even going to care? And there was something about that, like, sudden awareness of beauty, and then noticing myself and how tiny I was compared to this huge acacia tree that I was lying next to. I'm like that little ant, and here's this whole glorious creation around me. For what? And I think I'm just supposed to be enjoying it. And all of a sudden, I just experienced my whole body as if I was one of the lilies of the field, just rooted in the ground. And my arms just went up to the sky. And it was just like I could feel my whole body turning into this bright white lily. And it's like, I don't have to do anything. I'm just alive, just the same way anything else, whether it's a plant or an animal or another person. There is nothing to prove ever to anybody. And I'm just allowed to be joy. And I spent months trying to paint that moment. I never was able to make any sort of a visual representation. I would get these huge canvases and just paint, I'd get these white paints and try to get some sense of the gold and the brightness and make these huge strokes on the canvases. And anyway, it was fun to paint, but that sensation of just, wow, the purity of being alive. And I think that's still there. Like, it's still inside, and I can still access it anytime now. So it's not like I don't normally have to spend 5 days in silence these days to just have these little sparks of, oh, it feels good inside of this body. And I can feel my heart. I can feel my breath. And that's really all that's needed. Mm-hmm. And there couldn't be anything to prove to anyone. Like, what? Prove what? You're alive too. Therefore, infinite, whatever you want to call it, infinite life and joy and goodness.
Yeah, we're just surrounded by so much, so much other things and other people that make us believe that we have to prove ourselves. And then, I mean, it's also what we most of us at least internalize when we grow up and when we're like desiring and craving for the love and the attention of our parents. Yeah. I would be really curious to also hear from you, like, as you're writing your memoir, like, what different types, or because for now you said like all of these words, like joy, bliss, aliveness, love, they all belong to the same, um, yeah, to the same
being. It is
being,
just
yes.
being. It's presence. Yeah, those are more words, but yeah.
Yeah. So I would be really curious to hear more about, like, also how the maybe what's mostly known in our world, in the society, as love, as in romantic love, like how does that fit into this spectrum, and how do you experience maybe subtle differences, or is it all the same experience? Like, what is the how do they belong together?
Well, sometimes you see somebody who gets it, and they're usually really old people. I remember when I had first moved to France, and I was in the town of Gebvidal, they had just put in a new aquatic center. So it was they had several swimming pools and water jets and water slides and this and that. And so I used to like to go there and hang out. And there was this guy, I just liked to watch him. He was probably 90 years old. I don't know. He had this big white beard and he was pretty overweight. And he really enjoyed himself. He would just like kind of stand under these water jets and let them, splash on his back and everything. And anytime I caught his eye, he just had this sparkle. And even just a short glimpse between us, I would just start laughing. Like, and it feels like being in love. And obviously, I'm not in love, romantically in love with a person who I don't know his name, and he's twice my age and he's there at the swimming pool. Like, it's not romantic love, but there's something about like just wanting to laugh and just be so full of joy, because guess what? We just looked at each other and we both know that this is exquisite to be alive. And I think it can almost be trickier in romantic love, because that's where it actually isn't so much love. It's more like expectation or desire or wanting something or trying to get something from someone or give something. I think more often, probably even giving something to someone. I want to show you that I loved you because I made you a cup of tea, but then you didn't want it because it didn't have honey in it and you like honey in it. And then I get my feelings hurt because you didn't accept what I wanted to offer you, as if a cup of tea is love, right? Or we find ways to block it from one another.
Yeah, and I think, but I think I don't know what your experience is, but as you say, like you can see it in the eyes of people. I think you can also see it in the eyes when you like witness couples being with one another. Like, there are these. I mean, they could be like together, come together recently, but they could have also been together for like decades. There are these couples where you just sense and see within seconds that they are really still deeply in love with one another. It's like, yeah, I'm trying to grasp what, but it's more like the way
And you
that
feel it. And it's
yes,
like,
you feel it.
yeah. And when you're even in a room with a couple like that, the whole room kind of relaxes and there's this just bubbling of happiness and safety and all the good things. Just like, ooh, this is nice. It's just
Yes.
what it's meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm wondering like how, yeah, because I feel like in my understanding, it all starts with me. Like it all starts with me and with
Yes.
how much I am able to connect with love and how much I'm able to bring love to myself. Like even recently, like it's it's like this ongoing journey, right? Where you like discover that a part of you has been bugging you the whole time. Like for me, it's my perfectionist, and I sometimes don't even notice when I get hijacked by her. But like when she's on a mission and she wants something to be perfect, she can be really ruthless.
Hmm.
And then at some point, I really had to stop myself, but then also bringing love not only to the parts that she kind of put under her radar and like under her command, but also bring love to her because her intentions are just genuinely good and she wants the best for me. But like sometimes it takes some time to realize and also to bring the capacity to love all of these aspects. And I feel like, and I would love to hear your opinion about this, but the more that I soften into actually all of them are lovable, the more I also feel like I can open to the love that surrounds me, if it's in nature, if it's in like receiving it from another person, if it's in um, listening to music or eating something. It's just like I can allow myself to be nourished so much more. Like bringing it back to also what you mentioned in your first story where you shared about the water and like pouring in the water. Like how much do I allow myself to soften into receiving all the love that surrounds me all the time, which can be challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I love what you're saying about loving each one of your parts, because that really is what it takes to be love in the world, is just noticing when, oh, I don't like the part of me that gets annoyed, or um, just being a human is so lovable, but we're so annoying when we're hungry or tired, right? Like, if I've slept 3 hours and it's 5 p.m. and I haven't had dinner yet, I'm probably gonna not be very pleasant to be around. Um, and so I think those are the times, if you're a parent, it's really obvious that those are the times to love your child the most. Like when your child is hungry and tired, they're just going to be thrashing around, screaming, and there's going to be a lot of noise and discomfort. It's really not going to be pleasant. And that's when, more than ever, they need someone to be calm and holding and offering a really soft tone of voice and bringing some peanut butter or whatever, like get some protein into that child and create an environment where sleep is possible. And so we know that about little babies. And we have these babies running around inside of us all the time, and 2-year olds and 13-year olds and all of the ages. And so learning to offer this particular body a snack, or some exercise, or some sleep, or a glass of water, or some magnesium, or some vitamin D, really exquisitely noticing what is it that this body needs from me right now, and making that my top priority, that I will care for you and love you and treat you with kindness and be so soft and gentle with you, especially when you're not appearing to behave very well. That's the practice of a lifetime.
Yeah, and I have so much compassion for parents. I'm not a parent yet, but I'm like, yeah, I mean, being this like stable pillar that's calming and soothing. When I imagine like having, for example, had like a really busy or stressful day, and then like balancing all of these aspects, I can imagine it's like requiring a lot of awareness to be able to drop back into this yeah, centered love, from which actually everything becomes really clear, like the priorities become really clear, our body becomes way more soft, everything feels, yeah, way more manageable when we're remembering that we can and are held by love and can lean back into love. Yeah.
Well, and something we haven't talked about yet, too, is the strength and fierceness of love, too, because love can certainly be soft, for sure. And I think a lot of times it is really tender and warm and comforting and all of those things. It can also be very strong and firm. It certainly has boundaries. If everything is love, including myself, then I don't allow this body that's part of love and that is my sole responsibility while it's alive on the planet. That's my job to take care of it. And so if someone else is coming along and screaming at it and hitting it or mistreating it in some way, it's not my job in that moment, it's not love's job to be too soft. It's warm for sure and very firm. It's not a pushover. It has a very strong backbone and a very open heart.
Yeah, and I think it's also what brings the clarity of like, what are we fighting for? Like, what are we willing to mobilize within ourselves? What is worth for us to protect and fight for? That's definitely also, yeah, putting more
And
into.
we notice when our parts are getting triggered too. I mean, if you and I were to both stand right now and say, I am a stand for equality, or I am a stand for peace, or whatever it is, when you use your voice to say what you're willing to stand for and what you are a stand for, that's when you can notice parts of yourself being like, I don't know, that's really hard. Am I really willing to do that? And then to bring kindness to those parts of ourselves that aren't so sure if they want to be loving in that strong way, that fierce way, in the way that takes a stand for something.
I would also be really curious because I think one thing that has really changed the way that I engage in conversations and also in conversations with my clients, especially, is the secret ingredients of what you often mention as soon as you got the skill, forget all the skill, because what you actually need is to love the person in front of you. And yeah, through that love, everything that needs to happen and wants to happen will reveal itself. So I would love if you would want to speak more to this.
Well, and it's so tricky too, because once again, we have parts of us that pop up all the time that don't want to be love, that want to be ego or success or add value in our coaching, or do really well or be fulfilled and find meaning in our work. And those are all lovely values. They're just free gifts when love is there. They're not something we need to work at. And so, again, maybe love's absence, or it can just be at 90% or 70%, and we can still have 30% ego wrapped up in it or something. You can provide what we think is pure love in a coaching session and then find out maybe there was a little pity creeping in, or a little condescension, or a little just wanting to teach in a way that makes us feel that we're slightly better or more valuable, um, than the client. So sometimes it's noticing like, oh, there's another part of me trying to prove something, trying to be good enough, trying to whatever it's trying. Any trying really is something other than being.
And what have you noticed, like in those sessions or moments when you were able to really drop into the being with your client and the loving your client fully? What becomes possible?
Well, it's funny because the conversations sound like they don't make sense. I was thinking of this just yesterday. I was with a client that was willing to drop into being, and we did. And then you kind of start sounding like crazy people for a little while. Like if somebody was listening to the session, um, you wouldn't have any idea what the person was talking about, because they're not talking about something that makes sense in the world of kind of concrete stuff, but it makes a lot of sense. Um, it can just be hard to find words for it. So sometimes silence is the best when you settle into being. But one thing that I sometimes invite is that once you're settled into being together, coach and they're a conversation partner, and you're both like, there I am. There we are here inside. You can kind of scan the horizon, and then you can see all the things like my job, my spouse, my kid, my this tricky situation, whatever it is, and seeing it from being or from love suddenly becomes very humorous. It almost always brings some laughter or playfulness, or just like, I don't know, like, you know how babies are, where they just think everything is so hilarious. They look around and they're like, it's raining. This is so funny. Or like, look, this thing, it clapped against another thing that was like, and it made a sound. That's so funny. And it gets to be like that, where you look at your latest huge fight with your husband, or your the thing you just got upset about or whatever, and you just take a look at it from being, and it all starts getting kind of funny.
Hmm.
And just a lot more playful and lighthearted, and there's a lot more allowing and a lot less pushing and striving and trying and fixing and changing stuff, which is paradoxical because you're allowing and the results are just a lot more beneficial.
Mhm.
It's not like, oh, I just let everything go, and so then the laws of entropy came and turned everything into a big mess. Probably not. It's probably going to turn out better when you're just, here we are in this really fun world, and things are probably going to continue to happen like they do.
Mhm. Yeah, I also had, like, while you were speaking, I got the image of like how much tension we're holding in trying to make things exactly the way that we want them, and to control them, and to
Mm-hmm.
understand them, and like how much effort we put into this, and like listening to you and being more like in the melting the tension, and like looking at things more from a perspective of not taking ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, seems like a beautiful way to approach life and
Well,
friendship.
and I can kind of tell how much love I am in or not in just by kind of checking in with my muscles, because they're a lot squishier when I'm like remembering. Oh yeah, made of love. There it is.
Yeah.
There you are. You're made of love too, and it is a squishier way of feeling than, and I can definitely feel it when I'm like, the bank account doesn't have as much in it as I want, and it, like that doesn't quite feel like I'm remembering.
Yeah, and I think it's like also a constant practice. Like me, for example, even bringing love to the things that I don't enjoy so much, like trying
Mm.
to bring the awareness and see like how can I make this just a tiny bit more joyful, a tiny bit more pleasurable, but like more in the sense of not in the sense of like, oh, I need to change this, but more in the sense of like, how can I sprinkle a little bit of love into this?
Hmm. It reminds me of doing yoga nidra. I like to sometimes take a nap with some yoga nidra, and it's like a guided meditation that just invites a little bit more comfort. And like you said, it's like 1%. And sometimes, like, I would be lying in my bed, and, the meditation starts and it says, just adjusting things to make it 1% more comfortable. And I'll scan, I'm like, oh yeah, this sheet is kind of wrinkled under me. And I wouldn't have even noticed before, but I think I can be 1% more comfortable. The next thing you know, you're 40% more comfortable, just because you weren't trying so hard to be 40% more comfortable, but you're just like, oh yeah, I could wear my really soft, comfy sweatshirt, couldn't I? That would be nice. And next thing you know,
Exactly.
you've dropped off to sleep because love is there. Everything's
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah. As we wrap up for today, I would be really curious because this is just the beginning of our season on love. And I would be really
Mm.
curious, like, what are you looking forward to most in the upcoming conversations that we will be having around love with different guests that we're going to invite?
I'm looking forward to just the regular reminders to stay in love because I find it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to get into trying and pushing and stress and tension and doing and performing and pleasing and all that stuff. And um, I'm I'm a human in the same way that everybody else is, and so I live life backwards a lot of the time. So just having these conversations is such a helpful reminder, and I want to hear as many stories as I can of people remembering love and being love and also forgetting love and what gets in the way and when they notice it. Um, I'm very interested to see who will show up on the podcast and who will bring more experiences of being and presence and agape and however they want to call it from real lived experiences, because I think there's a lot more kindred spirits out there who have tasted it than we normally are willing to recognize. I think sometimes these experiences of love feel so intimate and personal that we don't talk about them, or we feel a little embarrassed or childish or different or weird. And yet I have a feeling that a whole lot of people are experiencing, whether it's a glimpse or whether they're in the stage of life where they're just living in it most of the time. Either way, I think we can learn a lot from our stories.
I couldn't agree more. I'm so curious to hear all the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to?
I think seeing love through the eyes of different people, through different
Mm.
lenses, through different experiences. I think what recently for me has been so transformational is that there was this woman that was like talking about romance and how romance is such an important essence of our life and how it gets to be like buried and weakened because like people call it, as you said, like childish or like not to be taken seriously, a little woo, or it's also abused for like festivals or holidays like Valentine's Day where it's just commercialized. But if we just connect to the essence of romance, and like for me it was such a game changer to reconnect to this part of me. There was this romantic little girl, like maybe my teenage years, and like thinking about these big visions of love that I had, and these like um more like the expansiveness in my chest of like, wow, this is love, this is what can happen. And like nowadays, even making these moments happen for myself, like how can I create a romantic moment with myself? Is it like lighting up a
Uh-huh.
candle? Is it like preparing my favorite food for myself? um, but just redefining the frame that I put romance in, where it was like, oh my god, yeah, I'm so romantic, but this is not something to be talked about. So I felt very called out when you said like many people have these experiences and sometimes probably don't speak about them out of fear to be judged. And I think this is like, it's definitely time to get out of like all these boxes and all these moments where we experience this big love and just like allow it to become more part of what we share about, what we talk about, what we live in, so that it can just like amplify. Because I feel like the more that we share, the more that we talk, the more space it gets, and the more we all remind one another that love is all around us all the time. And so, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward
Mm,
to most.
yes, and there's so much pleasure in it, and just yeah, that feeling of expansion. So lovely. And I feel that so often when I'm with you, Eve. So I'm really looking forward to seeing who you'll invite and how you'll bring your romance and love and expansiveness to the space.
Yeah. Thank you for getting us started today.
Thank
Let's
you.
see.